Hello, guys. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Matthew, and today we're going to be talking about state management with Context API. A state makes it easier for us to manage data across multiple components. Say we have an app, a social media app, which has a home page, a profile page, a sidebar, the feeds, the profile details, and all of that. And all these are components that need a particular data to be consistent across all of them. Say we have a user and then the username, we want to get it and get details for the user from here, here, and here. With Context API, all we need to do is create a state that holds the user and then wrap it around our app. That way we can query the user from the home page or the profile page and all the other components that is in it. All right, let's get started. Okay, here we have a basic React app. All we do is render the home page and the login page conditionally. If we have a user, then you render the home page. If not, then go to the login page. Obviously, this would fail because we don't have a user yet. And and for the pages, we have the home page. The home page just has this success H1 and the logout button, which we'll do something with later. And then the login page. For the login page, we just have a form, and then we get the username and the password. So let's continue with our context. So let's begin. First of all, we create a folder here called context. You don't have to do that, but just to make your code cleaner. And then inside here, we create two files. The first would be the auth context, and the next one would be the auth reducers. First, we want to take care of the auth reducers. We create an object of methods, say auth reducers. The first method will be the first method will be start logging. Sorry, and this will return an object where user will be null, is fetching will be true, and error will be null. Let's duplicate that three more times. This will be logging success. This will be logging failure, and this will be logout. For logging success, user will be user. They will pass in user. This fetching will be false, and error will be null. Logging failure, user will be null. Is fetching will be false. Error would be error. We'll take the error here. All right. For logouts, user will be null. Is fetching will be null, be false, and error will be null. Let's export that and save. All right, now we go to the auth context. First thing we want to do is declare our initial state. Initial state will be equals to an object where the user is null, is fetching, is null, and then error is null too. This fetching is false, sorry. All right, next we'll create the context and export it. So we export that first. Export const auth context. Create context from React, and then we pass it the initial state auth provider component. Don't worry, you'll get to know the use of this later. And then we want to declare the state. We'll use a use state hook for this and set state. Use state. Import it from React. And then we initialize it to the initial state. All right. Now we return auth provider dot auth context dot provider, sorry. Auth context dot provider. We want to give this a value of user because the state dot user state dot user. Sorry, you need to put this in double braces first. My mistake. Is fetching will be state dot is fetching. And then error will be state dot error. State dot error. And then we'll pass in the children here. Now the children, why we're passing it here is so we can be able to access any of this information from any of the components that are wrapped with our context. All right. Now that we have that down, let's create the login API call. We're going to make this an async function because we're making a call to an API and we have to await it. So once this function fires, the first thing we want to do is to change the state. So we'll set the state to introducers dot start logging, and then we make the API call. And then we'll be using Axios. The login URL is from an API I created. You can use yours if you want to. Our user credential. We'll have to pass in the user credentials here. Once we get our response, we want to update the state again to be introducers dot logging success. And then we're going to pass it the user. But there's a problem here. We want to change the state if the login call fails. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a try catch, and I'll say if it fails, still change the state, but make it dot logging failure, and then we take in the error. All right, let's not forget to pass the login here, and then also a logout function which we're going to create just now. All right, we'll create that logout function too. And we'll set the state to auth dot receivers dot logout. All right, now that we're done with this, let's go over to our login page. Now all we have to do in our login is to get our logging function, and to do that we use context hook, and we'll pass in the auth context called the login, and pass it the user credentials. All right, before I forget, we're supposed to wrap our app, wrap it with our auth provider. And now we can simply get our user from our context too. One last thing, we go to our home page, and we're going to call this logout here, logout function. Then we pass in the auth context too. Now all we have to do is say on click. We want to log out. Let's check out our app. Okay. So we have a test user and a password already here, which should not be so. This is bad design. But for the sake of learning, we're going to ignore that. This is taking a bit of time because, well, when you use a free hosting site. All right, so the logging was successful. If I click the log out again, it logs out. But now there is a trick to this. If you're logging and you reload, you log out. The reason for this is because the user is not being persisted somewhere. So we're going to fix that now. The easiest way to do that is to use a use effect hook. So we're going to add a dependency to this, which will be the state.user. So every time state.user changes, this function is going to fire. And all we're going to do inside this function is to say local storage dot set item, and we give it a key, which will be user. We stringify it. All right. So another thing we want to do is when we fetch the user initially, we want to check if there is an existing user. If not, then it's no. So it's local storage dot get item, and then we get our user. But before we get that, we have to pass it. Remember, we stringified it. All right, let's go to our app. We log in. Success. Reload. All right, it's all working. Thank you very much for watching. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Any questions and other projects you like me to handle, just leave them in the comments and I'll get to all of them. Until next time, goodbye.